I knew that this book needed to be written, in particular when the Intifada broke out in the year 2000. Having lived in the Middle East for many years, having been a journalist in the Middle East, I found that the Intifada produced some of the most problematic images for me, and I use one of these images in the book. This is, of course, the image of Mohammed al-Dura, the 12-year-old who was shot to death in crossfire between Palestinians and Israeli soldiers in the Gaza Strip in the year 2000. And it was a very much of a landmark image for the precise reason that everybody who saw it went different ways with its interpretation. The question of photographs of people facing death have been around forever. They seem to creep up at all the kinds of events that I tend to have analyzed, whether it be the Kennedy assassination or the Holocaust or the coverage of 9/11. There's always a kind of gravitation to death. And because death is difficult to depict in news pictures, to the absence or suggestion of death. And this is what I'm calling the about to die photo. There are many ways in which this actually takes shape. And I argue for three different kinds of categories of these photos. The photos of presumed death are photos that picture inanimate objects. And so what you get are pictures of barren landscapes, flooded terrain after a tsunami, crumbled structures after 9/11, with no depiction of the people who actually face their death within those structures. Now the question, of course, is as to whether or not the people are actually alive or already dead, of course, is not, we can't confirm that. So the assumption is that we look at the structures and the devastated landscape as a substitute for the people that we cannot see. A second kind of about to die image is what I call possible death. And these are images of people who stand in for those who die, but they do not necessarily die themselves. One of the most well-known examples of possible death is what's come to be known as the Warsaw Ghetto Boy. This was a little boy who was being faced down by a Nazi soldier who was training a gun on him. He was situated a little bit before a group of people who it then became apparent, this was not a photo that was actually published at the time. It only appeared with the Nuremberg trials at some delay. The argument was that he was much more useful to Holocaust remembrance, keeping him symbolic, universal, anonymous, and unnamed. And so here you have a perfect example of the ways in which a person facing death stands in for a larger population of other people who did meet their death regardless of whether or not that particular boy actually died. This third kind of images of certain death that tell us so much about what it is we're looking at, despite the fact that they give us more information, they also promote the most heightened debate about what it is we're seeing. These are the images where we get responses like, "I don't believe what I see." I wanted the camera to keep going over and over. So you get this kind of disbelief that goes with these images, regardless of the fact that there is so much information, or what we think is information that's attached to them. And this really relates to the larger issue, which is we have tended to look at images as if they are conduits of information. We've tended to look at images as if they can help us understand the news in a rational, reasoned, thoughtful manner. And my argument with this book is that these images, both with their patterning, with their frequency, with their heightened and repeated appearances, suggest that it's not just information that is at stake in looking at images in general, but at images of people about to die in particular. Instead, it's what we're dealing with is engagement. We're dealing with people engaging with what they see regardless of whether or not they understand it.